Hey everyone, and welcome to another Airbrush Asylum raw video. In today's video I felt like doing a few skulls, something a bit different, but I know it's always very popular, and we're actually going to use this AirShot stencil that's been sent to us by AirShot to test. So I thought, I've got another one of these to go, so I thought perfect time. It's a good day for skulls. Alright. This particular template we're going to render with just black and grey. So what I've done is I've already pre-mixed two of my colours. So I've got my grey mix there, so that's made up of transparent base with reducer and just a few drops of black. So I'm using Trident paint for this demonstration. So with the transparent base, just mix it up according to your ratio of mixing that you like, so depending on what airbrush you're using. If you like, check out the video that we just did, which will explain our mixing ratios, and you can follow that. And then once you've got the mix right with your reducer and the transparent base, you just add a few drops of black. So I think for this one I added maybe 5 drops of black, and then this is pretty much almost solid black. It's just a transparent black, so same thing. So mix up your reducer with your transparent base, and for this particular one I think there's probably about, I'd say 15 to 20 drops of black. Alright, so it's almost solid black, but it's just still got a little bit of more transparency to it. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, all the paints are Trident. Okay, so they're a water-based paint and you can clear coat over them. Kind of use them a bit like any automotive paint. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 airbrushes today. I'm going to use my CMC Plus Micron and my CMSB Micron, which is a side feed and a gravity feed airbrush. The CMC Plus, which is this one here, has a 0.23mm needle in it, and the CMSB has a 0.18mm needle in it. Alright, so I'm going to use this for the finer detail. So this one's got the black in it already, and this one's got our light grey. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we're just going to place the template on our aluminium composite panel. So we're just going to use that, put it into position where we're happy with it, and then using our fingers, just going to hold it into place, and then I'm going to lightly dust over the entire design. And what this will do is it's going to transfer the stencil art onto our panel, so no need to sketch it out or anything like that. You can just use this, hence what they're for anyway. That's what you sort of have freehand templates for, so it just saves you you know, drawing out each skull. I'm going to block the view for a second, but just bear with me. So I'm going to attempt to do this reasonably quickly, not too complicated, just to keep it fairly simple for people that are newbies, and still detailed enough for someone who wants to get a bit more out of it. So there we go, we have our outline pretty much done. So a few of those are a bit lighter, and I don't know how you're going to go seeing that on the screen. So what I'm going to do is just using our template, line that little guy back up, like, just going to look for some points that I can use, like that. There we go, we're nearly there. Alright, happy with that, and I'm just going to re-airbrush in those bits there, just so he pops out a bit more. So beauty of the freehand templates, you can always go back and do that. And there we have him. Okay, there's also a bit of an eye missing there, so I better do that as well. So usually I would just freehand all of this, even skulls like this I wouldn't necessarily be using a template, but it is handy if you're doing multiple skulls on something and you want that repetitive effect. It's definitely a lot easier to use a template. It's got a bit of fluff on there. To use a template like this, which you can then hold on there, get your basic outline, and off you go. Alright, so now we're going to start to actually render each skull. So I'm just going to start and pick one. We may as well start up here. And essentially I'm just going to build up my tones. Not going to go too crazy because obviously I'm going to come back in with my dark. This is really just to pick out my shapes and shadows, which I'm sure if you've watched a few of our videos you've heard me discuss before. Just going to use my Mac valve here and turn down the pressure. And at this stage now we're going to pick a bit, just turned it up a little bit more, it was a bit too low. We're going to pick a light source, which will be top left, so up here. So all our shading will fall on this edge. So now's when you start to think about, you know, what the skulls would appear to look like once they get shading on them. So you would basically try and visualize them as a 3D object, and then, you know, add your shading in from there. So I don't want to spend too much time on this step. I really just want to sketch them in, get my shading in the place where it should be, especially the ones that sit on top of the others. You know, we can even do some of the teeth stretching down into the previous skull. Bit of that organic skin look. And remember, you can always go back to your template if you want to pick out some of the actual details of the skulls, like I did earlier. Like some weren't drawn in correctly, so then I switched back to my template and just re-outline them. Okay, so just taking my time here to work through. Going to loosen a bit of the trigger tension, so by doing that you just unwind this a bit, and now the throw is a lot smoother. So obviously if you wind it in, it's going to tighten the spring and make that trigger tighter. So I'm just going to loosen that off a bit because I'm rendering so many skulls, so I generally like it a bit looser. Just a bit smoother, and makes it a bit easier when you're repeating the same sort of rendering over and over and over. Just going to keep rendering. adding in some of the teeth too. So like I said before, you can add in all the teeth as they are, or if I do this sort of thing, I can stretch them into the previous skull. So feel free to again make it up as you're doing it. Even though it's a freehand template and the artwork, oops, spidered out there a bit, but the artwork is the same, it doesn't really matter because you can put your own little spin to it. So where I just blasted out a little bit, I'm not too worried. As I mentioned, I'm going to come back in with the darker tone, and skulls being nice and forgiving, you can just have that as a bit of texture. Especially when you're starting out, you are going to make mistakes. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, nearly I think coming on to 20 years, but you still make mistakes even now. I mean, it just happens. You kind of, as you get better with the airbrush, you kind of get more relaxed with it, and I think what happens is you're almost not paying attention. You're kind of just painting, and then you flick that trigger back a bit too far, and then it sticks on you, or or you just pull it back too far like I just did, and it spiders out a little bit. But with the years of experience comes also the fact that you don't really worry about things like that anymore, because a lot of the time you can fix it. Obviously there's some mistakes that are hard to repair, but sometimes spidering out the paint, as I've mentioned in other videos, even like there, it's spidered out a little bit, but it still shows up in that area. Well, that can also help to create your effects. So, and one thing I always tell my students is don't give up on the artwork. So if you've made a mistake, just keep painting, paint through it, like finish the artwork, even though it can be frustrating, because a lot of the time you're either going to fix it, or if you don't fix it, at least you've learned something from it. If you just stop and throw it in the bin, well, that's not going to help you, because you'll make that mistake again and again, and you're better off just learning from it and trying to fix it. And if you can't fix it, then at least you hopefully remember not to do it again. Okay, so we're just skull by skull, like this guy here, his teeth are almost not even there, so there's just some holes where they're meant to be. So I'm going to turn that into a more organic look. So that's what you can do with this grey here, because it is so light. I'm virtually just using it as a sketching tool, as if I had a grey lead, you know what I mean? So it's just a good way to shape the artwork, decide where you're going to go, and then I come back in with the darker tone in a minute, and I'm going to pull out all the detail. There's no point in spending hours upon hours, unless you really have to, detailing this particular tone. Alright, so when I first started to airbrush, I used to make sure that every single tone was as neat as I possibly could go. I mean, it was great for practice, but at the end of the day, it didn't really help, because, well, it helped with practice, like I said, but everything that I spent so long trying to perfect was then covered by the next tone. Or let's say 80% of it was covered. So I tend to, sort of paint a little bit like we had Mike LaValle. We hosted him in 2015. He came and taught out at our premises, and anyway, he used to say loose to tight. So that's how he paints. and it makes sense. So your background, just, you know, paint it in, doesn't have to be super sharp, and then as you go further and further up the layers, you get tighter and tighter with the airbrush and with your lines. And he's probably one of the airbrush artists that has, well, he's just so quick the way he paints, you know, and he's phenomenal at what he does. And that's why he's not spending all these unnecessary hours rendering things that you will never see. So obviously it depends on what kind of stuff you're painting, and you know, some things you can't rush and it doesn't always work, but just keep that in mind, you know, loose to tight. And I mean, if you're serious about doing this as a career, and you know, you want to earn money, well, speed is important. You know, you can't spend hours upon hours upon hours, you know, that you're just going to cover up. Essentially, you're working then for nothing. So, but airbrushing as a business, that's a whole different ball game again. Anyway, we're starting to build, so that part of the skull section has been done. You can see I'm not really going too crazy. Again, loose to tight. I'm not going to put any eyeballs in this time, I'm just going to keep them sockets only. But again, you could decide to add that in if you like. There's no rules, remember, it is art. You can see here this one's spidered out a little bit because it was applied pretty wet with the template, but again, I don't mind it, you know. When you go wet, it tends to look almost like a real harsh edge, so it kind of looks cool. Again, a mistake that, you know, has sort of worked in our favour. Again there, gone a bit heavy, but that'll be hidden in a shadow. I am running this very, very thin, and it's actually probably a bit too thin for comp panel. This was actually the colour that I'd mixed up for the tiger artwork that we recently did for a course, and I was painting on a canvas panel, so I should have actually checked it out, but doesn't matter. Makes for interesting viewing, I suppose, for you guys, because you get to see more mistakes that, you know, well, things that are happening. I mean, and that's part of it too, especially if you're doing this for a living. You're going to build up so much paint, and you know, grabbing different paint mixes, or even if you're out at a show, you know, it might not be the perfect scenario to paint in, but you know, adapting is one of the best things that you can do as an artist, I think. So alright, I'm nearly done with this tone. Alright, we'll call that done for the moment. If I need to, I can always grab this tone and come back to it, but I think we're pretty good with that. So let's now go into actually adding a bit more rendering. So for this step, because I'm going to be going in closer, you know, virtually leaning on it, I'm going to put on a glove on a left hand, which is the opposite hand with how I hold the airbrush. And I'm going to get my Sam SB and we're going to start to render. So this time I'll start sort of in the middle because some of these are bigger skulls and I'll work my way out from there. So just hope this runs nicely for me. I have just swapped needles and nozzles, so they should, technically they should run well. Okay, this pressure's a bit low. And I think that's just because the paint's thick, or thicker. The other one was too thin, this one's a bit thicker. So we're starting to get some movement here. So because this is the CMSB, it tends to definitely perform better with thinner paint. Okay, that's quite thick. It's not really working for me, so I'm going to thin that down a little bit. So we're going to get our jar of paint, tip that back in. We're going to get, so that's our black, we're going to just put some more reducer in there. Like so. We're going to shake her up. And hopefully, it's going to be thin enough. Give this a go. Okay, let's go. Hopefully this works now. Yeah, that feels better already. So you could also use a mid-tone if you're not comfortable going this dark this quick. Flowing better now. So making it a bit organic. And not just sort of bone. I'm going to shade into that as well. So again, if you want, you can always go back in with this too and line up your template. And that way you get just a bit of a sharper edge. But I'm just going to persist going freehand. Right, I might change this over a bit. I'm not that fond of the CMSB right now. It's kind of working, but I think it's going to go quicker with the larger cup for what I'm trying to achieve. So let's just switch that over and keep rendering. I don't want this to be too long of a video when it doesn't really need to be. I'm just going to bear with me while I'm switching the colour. Obviously I'm not going to do a full clean out because we're going with the same style of colour, just darker, but I am going to just add a little bit of reducer in the cup first, blast that out, and then add my black. And the reducer kind of acts a bit like a bit of gun wash, going through the airbrush, flushing everything out. Alright. Let's see how we go now. So this is obviously a bit of a thicker needle, but I think it's going to make it a bit easier to render everything, because I don't know, I'm not really liking the SB at the moment. It's just not behaving for me, even with a new needle and a nozzle. I don't know, might have to actually pull her down. Okay, it's a bit better. Even though this is a 0.23mm needle, you can still get pretty much the same sort of detail. Although in fairness, the SB isn't performing 100% correctly. we're moving right along now. If it's getting a bit boring, just hit fast forward. Remember, you still got that option. But I hope you guys find it somewhat entertaining and educational. Appreciate everyone's feedback on all the other videos. And as always, if this is the first time checking out one of our videos, thanks for joining us and welcome. Feel free to hit subscribe and tap on that bell icon, and that should notify you every time we put out new content. And we'd love to have you as part of our community. We do try and put out new videos every week. So I'm just suggesting that there's some teeth there, so you can, do your own little versions of it if you do end up getting this template. Now the template that you see here would be available from AirShot stencils until we actually end up getting them in, which we are planning on doing, but at the moment you should be able to get them through there. We also don't ship overseas, so we've got a Amazon influencer page for that. So a lot of people think it's just a separate website of our products, but it's not actually. And there is a video explaining that, and that'll be linked up in the description below, as well as the direct link to our Amazon influencer page. Basically all it is a separate page / kind of website looking thing, and what we can do is we can find the products that we use, i.e. this particular airbrush, like your CMC plus microns on there, the SBs on there as well, and numerous other products that we use, eraser pencils, all sorts of bits and pieces, these easels, etc., etc. And if you purchase any of those products, it will get shipped from whoever the seller is. Right, and it'll tell you when you would receive it. So majority obviously will be shipped overseas, but it's not us shipping it, it's the seller, and we just get a little commission for recommending it. So it's just an affiliate link, and had a few people purchase through there already, which is nice, so thanks for that. If you are subscribers, appreciate it. And hopefully it's worked well for you. But it's basically just a way that we can offer what we use to our international customers, as we don't ship overseas from our website. And we get asked all the time, where can we buy these airbrushes? What do you recommend? Yada, yada, yada. So the perfect way. I've got some descriptions on there, but if you're unsure, just watch the video. I'd explain everything on there, and as I said, that'll all be linked up in the description. So back to this panel, just skulls upon skulls upon skulls, but you know what, it never gets tiring. I've been painting skulls for so long, and I still enjoy doing it. It's just fun. You can just be free with it, make up what you want. Like personally, I would rather paint skulls every day than have to paint portraits. It's just, I don't enjoy painting portraits. That's one thing I'm not really into. I mean, I have done them and I do them every now and then when customers ask, but it's not my forte. If I was going to paint a portrait, it'd have to be a bit more of a fantasy edge to it. Like, you know, I don't know, just anything but just a portrait. I know in airbrushing, so many people love painting them, and that's fine. Just keep rendering these teeth. Thought this would be a pretty quick video, but it's turning out to take a bit longer, but doesn't matter. Hopefully you're sticking around and you're enjoying it nonetheless. Like I said, there's always fast forward, and you know, even if you watch just the first part and then you practice from that, or you know, you just keep coming. A lot of people keep coming back to these videos, so we appreciate that as well. We're happy to help, and you know, thank you for everyone. You get so many messages thanking us about our videos, so saying that they've helped them and they're new to airbrushing, or they've, you know, just found their passion again. So it's nice to hear all the stories, so keep them coming. No, I'd say we're nearly halfway there. So just remember where your light source is as well. Add some cracks in there. So just gradually darkening off certain areas. So these would be, these would look really good if you were doing, say, like a hot rod flame mask out job on a Harley or something, and then you had these even ghosted into the background. Just endless what you could do, really. Just use your imagination and utilize the template and just come up with your own spin to it. Kind of adding little bits of texture as I go. Darkening some of these shadows, so just moving a bit further back on the artwork to do that, just to get a bit more contrast. Some of those deeper sections. We're getting there. A few more to do. It's definitely been quicker with the CMC plus micron. So the plus, basically, the only difference between the CMC and the CMC plus is the MAC valve. And also it has, the CMC has a sort of hole in the lid, so it does make it easier to add in paint as you're going. However, obviously, similar to the CMSB, you can also risk tipping the paint on your artwork, so just got to be a bit more careful. But both are great airbrushes. Getting a sore hand myself. Adding in some of the teeth there. We're getting there. Make some of these teeth a bit more organic. So not really difficult to do this one. I mean, pretty straightforward. The only thing I'd recommend is if you're just starting out or you're relatively new to the airbrush, then maybe add a separate second tone in there. So don't go straight to this darker tone like I have. It does take quite a bit more practice. Yeah, just add a mid-tone. So you'd do the same sort of thing as far as mixing, use your transparent base, but let's say that your first tone you put 5 drops of black in, and this one you had say your 15 to 20, well the mid-tone just add 10 or say 8 drops of black, and then that way it's not going to be as dark. Use that as your second lot of shading and to build up more texture, and then go to this tone. So you can come in here as well if you want. Let me see, where's this skull? Here we go. Just come in here and hit a bit of the template to get a sharper edge. There you go. and then you can feather that back out. So you can do a mix of freehand and stenciled work if you like. But you can see the layers that we're creating, which is kind of cool. Obviously, if I was doing this for an actual commission, I'd spend a lot more time on it. And I probably also would add in that second tone and really spend the time adding texture and detailing within that second tone, and then just coming in with my darker. But because I want some of these videos to be, you know, not too full on, and you know, like all different colors and layers, and sometimes I just like doing the simple basic, you know, this is what you need, so that you can create artworks like this as well with minimal colors and just get the feel for it. I mean, if you want to practice airbrushing, this is probably one of the best things to practice your freehand skill, even though, you know, people mistake and go, oh yeah, you're using a template. But yes, you are using a template to just sketch in the basic design, but then what they forget is that I'm not using the template after that. So, I mean, I can do all this freehand, I don't really need the template, but for people that can't draw or are still learning, well, it's the best thing to do, because you can sketch it in using your template, and then you get all your freehand skills by airbrushing as much of it freehand as you can, and then if you get stuck, you've still got your template to go back to. That's the other beauty of going nice and light. You can virtually draw over a section and kind of just blends away, even though we've got a bit of a grey edge there. It's so light that, yeah, by ignoring it, your eye's going to start to not even pick up on it anymore. And if you want to spend more time on this, you could then turn that into texture or whatever you want. I mean, you can even suggest that it's still there, you know, run these over the top. There you go. Bring a bit of shadow under there. So you're free to just play around with it. That's the beauty of that sketching tone. Almost done. If you're still watching, appreciate it. And hopefully you've enjoyed it. A couple more to render and then that's it. At least then you know how to do some black and white skulls using transparent base and black. And the AirShot template. Now I just jumped over to that skull, but I just noticed that little bit that I didn't like. Alright, there we have it. I reckon we'll call that done. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, keep on painting and bye for now. Until next time, feel free to check out any of our other videos, and thanks again for watching. We do really appreciate it. In the meantime, if you haven't already, feel free to hit subscribe. We have plenty of step-by-step tutorials, quick tips, airbrush insights, showcase, live streams, and much more. You can also visit our website at airbrushdasylum.com.au. Thanks for watching.